office for at least one day in a week. So, which is pretty nice though. I have like so much space to myself, and we get free lunches, and we're in Aksarben, so it's not too bad.
So, so by the way, hello everybody. We were just talking about Jay had to go back to the office. So
Yeah, today is the first day back, and I have to go back at least once, so one day a week.
so what do you think is going to happen there? Do you think they're going to eventually bring you back full time into the office?
They better not. Everybody got so accustomed to working from home that performance-wise, I think it'd just take a toll. But for what I do, I think it really you miss the like one-on-one interaction. You kind of get that you can read people a little bit better rather than just through emails or through Teams or Messenger, those
Sure.
type of things. So the human interaction definitely it made the day go by really fast though. I mean, actually it was at work longer than I would be at home, but it seems like I concentrate more doing my job rather than focusing on distractions at home. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been fortunate. I've been working from home for 5 years now, and I can't imagine going back to the office. But anyway, let's talk fishing, man. I saw you were out on the water this weekend with Dickie
And
and with CP, man, and
yeah.
looks like you guys crushed it.
Yeah, I actually ran into CP on Saturday. He's pre-fishing for an upcoming tournament here in Omaha, if anybody knows what's going on there. And then I thought it was somebody else. I thought it was Evan French, but then I saw CP like Jay. I was like, CP, what's up, man? And then when those type of things happen, we just kind of like just hang out and fish side by side, just talk about fishing. That's basically what we're doing now, but we're just fishing together. And same thing with so on the next day, me and him, CP were like, hey, let's go to Prairie Rose, right? We
Right.
were thinking about going to Prairie Rose, and then we're like, CP was like, I promised Dickie I'd fish with him. I was like, okay, we'll tell Dickie to come to Prairie Rose. Well, he was like, nah, he can't go too far. I was like, okay, well, so we met up and we had just a great day, just kind of a
That's awesome,
caravan
man.
did around the lake, and it was awesome, man.
That's awesome. I've only fished one tournament, I think, with Dickie,
Uh-huh.
but he's such a good dude, man. Like,
He's already setting up a drop shot rig because of me.
go figure. He's
Yeah.
he's he's a good dude, man, and I know he had some health things going on, and
Yeah.
sounds like he's healing up, and hopefully he'll be able to hit a couple tournaments with us
Uh-huh.
for sure. Of course, I don't know that he'll be able to go to Wilson, which is our next big one, right?
Uh-huh.
Are you going to make that one, by the way?
I'm about 60-40 on that one.
Okay.
So,
Should be a great time down there. By the way, Kansas kayak anglers are fishing there this weekend.
ooh.
Marty's in that tournament, so I think it's this weekend. Yeah, this weekend.
So we
So
gotta
it'll
get
be
those
interesting.
guys on. Yeah, we gotta get those guys on the show next week then, or something.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see. I'll be watching that leaderboard for sure. And of course, we have the big 3-day midseason deal for the All American going on up on 789, pull seven eight
Mm-hmm.
nine on the Mississippi. So,
Yeah.
um, and we got a bunch of guys out there. Rick, of course, is out there.
Wow.
Chris Longshore, Tyler Alexander, Nate's out there. Bobby Rubik's out there. And there's probably more, and of course some of the Iowa guys too, right? Like Kerry's out there.
Tim Burley.
Yeah, Tim's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good luck to all those guys, man. It's kind of one of those
Me
bucket
too.
list places that I want to get up there and go because
Yeah.
everybody talks about just how beautiful it is, and
Well, when it's hot down here, you gotta go chase. You gotta go chase colder, weather a
yeah,
little bit when it's middle of the summer. So.
yeah, for sure. So we got a great show lined up tonight. Of course, we have James Strawbridge joining us from Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, and we're going to talk a little bit about his series and a little bit about bass fishing in Colorado. So I know for a lot of people when they hear Colorado, they're thinking fly fishing and trout, but
Yeah.
they do have some pretty good bass fishing out there. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. But before we get into that, I just want to give everyone a quick update on fishing for families. Right. So this is our big fundraiser that's coming up here in, gosh, God, 1 month from today. Right. So it's August 6th is our tournament. And this is Omaha citywide, open to boat, bank, kayak anglers. We're hoping to have between 150 and 200 anglers out there. We did at one point, we thought we would have an online tournament running the same day, but I'm just buried. So we're just going with the live tournament this year, and we might add that that next year. But I don't know if you've been paying attention. Sponsors are jumping on board. It's super cool to watch. Of course, Shields, who was our club sponsor, I went and met with them and was like, hey, we're doing this thing. And I just really wanted to ask them for prize donations. And they're like, nope, we want to be your title sponsor. So super happy to have them. Of course, Mr. Picnic, a local event rental company. Josh and Ben over at ProPlum kind of got us in touch with them, and they jumped on board as a gold sponsor. We have Ironhide Construction. I mean, we just got so many. And then I found out yesterday, and this is kind of a new announcement. Yesterday, I found out that we have another gold sponsor, and it's Ferguson Enterprises. So Ferguson Enterprises is jumping on with us, and we're just excited to have them. And we got to keep the ball rolling here. Nice. We lost our guest in the green room, but hopefully he'll come back. I'm sure. There he is. He's coming. All right. So anyway, we're excited for that. We got our fundraising challenge, which Jay, you and I will need to talk a little bit more about offline because we want to make sure we beat the brew crew over there at Cross Train and Pint 9 and raise a little bit more money than they do. Because
if they raise more money than us, that's good. I mean, it's okay. I don't mind getting dunked for a good cause. So
yeah, for sure. And I think the whole idea is like, oh man, I'd really love to see James take a swim, dude. I'm gonna go give money to the brew crew, right?
Yeah.
So everything's not tallied yet, but so far we've already raised like close to $15,000 on this deal. So super cool deal. So anyway, you guys keep your eyes open, ears open for more information on that. I'll be reaching out to some of the guys in the club and hoping I can help motivate and drive some of that fundraising stuff. So with that, I've been talking already for forever, it seems. But let's bring James in. And hello, there he is. James, can you hear us? Jay,
you guys, I don't know if you can see me.
I can see you.
There you are.
We can hear you. We can see you.
You guys are frozen. I can't hear anything.
What?
Hello.
Oh man, we were doing so good before.
No, that's better.
Okay. I mean, it's like when we were kids, right? And you had to hold tinfoil. You had tinfoil wrapped around the rabbit ears, and then you had to have your little brother go up there and hold them a certain way, right?
Everything will work fine until I get on a computer. Trust me. This is all known facts. Part of my captain's meetings that I do with CKB is like a comedy show. So if you guys ever want a good laugh, tune in for the captain's meetings on Friday nights.
That's too funny.
So you're saying you're tech savvy?
Not me. Not me at all.
Too funny. So I am one of those guys that watch other series, their captain's meetings and awards, just because I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that you kind of get to know people a little bit, and I like to. I don't know.
I just like I was telling you earlier. I like to get that feel where you're going. You're seeing the launch. You can kind of see what's going on, and you can kind of feel the anticipation rather than just feeling, seeing numbers and results throughout the day. It's a different view on it.
Yeah. For sure. Anyway, you do a good captain's meeting, James.
Well, thank you. I try. I really don't take myself too serious. We all do this because we love the sport, and we do this. I do this for the anglers and the opportunity that bass has given us here in the state of Colorado to have such a great platform when they got into the kayak series. So that's the whole reason why I started CKB right there.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because Nebraska had a Bassmasters, Bass Nation series, Kayak Nation Bassmasters, whatever it's called, deal, a one-shot event, and then we didn't have anything the next year. And then we thought maybe another club was going to do something this year. We had kind of talked about it, but and I don't know, because I haven't dabbled on this. So tell me about that process, setting that up. How does that work? Maybe it's different here, but how did that work in Colorado? Because you have to go before, like, I don't know, some board or something, right? Get approval or something to do it. How's it work?
Yeah, what you do is basically there's a form that's on bassmaster.com that you can print out, and you need at least 6 guys or gals or anglers, we'll call them, to get together to quote form the club. And once you
Right.
get those guys, those 6 anglers together, then you submit their names with their paperwork, their address, email, BASS number, and you submit that to BASS, and then they go through the process and issue you a chapter number, so to
Okay.
speak. And then you wind up getting a little link to a roster management that allows me to see who's a paid member of the nation, who's paid their membership, what their expiration date is, stuff that really nobody else can see. And that kind of forms the club at that point. And when the club first started, James Francis started all that. James and I started this club. James talked to me about it, and I was just busy with work, and I just didn't want to put my name on the dotted line as president. I said, I'll help out. I'll put schedules together. I'll do the captain's meetings, and I'll do whatever I need to do. But if you put your name on a dotted line, you handle the PayPal stuff. So James and I started it along with 4 other people just to have the club formed. And then we got our approval from BASS.
Can I ask one question? Why would one club want to join BASS and not just run just a small club and not, just shoot through, shoot for BASS right away? Like, why choose BASS for club?
Well, there's already a club in Colorado, Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, CKFC, and they are affiliated with KBF. And then when Bassmaster came along and they got into the kayak game, I'm a boater from a bass boat world. That's where I originally came from, and I always affiliated with BASS. They have a great platform. It's a great way for us anglers to advertise using their platform, interviews, and all that stuff. So they provide us with the insurance as well. So if we were to just start a regular club, non-affiliated with any national organizations such as KBF or BASS, then you're all out on your own for insurance, and you're going to have to maintain club dues and all that different stuff to cover all those expenses. BASS has that structure in place. So once the club is formed and we got our chapter number, when I need insurance for our events, I just process that right through BASS with certificate naming them on the insurance and the insurance policy holder and all that stuff. And BASS provides that for me. So it was, for one, KBF with CKFC. That was one organization that was in Colorado. And then when BASS came along, I thought it was just going to be another good way for Coloradans or anybody else that wants to fish with us to have another way to qualify for a national championship through a different platform. And BASS has the name and their recognition, so why not?
Gotcha. James, you're muted.
Hello? Did I hit something?
Can you hear
Yep.
me? No, it's
Yep.
me.
Yep.
It's me. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
I've got these fancy buttons down here.
I mean, your guys' faces are frozen. I'm not even seeing you move, but I can hear you, so that's good enough.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, you don't need to see us anyway. We're not the best looking for sure.
Not
All
yet.
right. So you guys put this series together last year. Of course, James Francis then was like, he bailed on you. He's like, I'm out of here, dude. I'm going to North Dakota.
Yes, he did.
Right.
Yes, he did.
And everyone's like, North Dakota, there's no fish in North Dakota. Of course, he's up there proving us all wrong. If you guys don't follow him on social media, you should, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about. The he's just a beast when it comes to catching big fish. Of course, he's got a power plant lake up there, so
that's nice to be able to go all year long, because there's no way I could live that far north and go that long. I mean, I go crazy in November, December, January, and February here in Colorado. It's pretty, I mean, November's okay. In December, it starts falling apart, but December, January, and February, I go 3 months of ice, and I'm like, man, I need to go somewheres and go fishing.
So you're not an ice fisherman?
No, you're looking at a guy here, 35 years in the construction industry, working outside or indoors. I've had my share of standing outside in the cold and standing over a 10-inch hole trying to catch fish when it's hard enough to catch fish out of a whole lake when it's thawed. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me.
That's too funny. So I got to tell you, man. So of course I grew up in Colorado, right? I'm a Fort Collins guy, right? My first time ice fishing was maybe 25 years ago or something like that, and we went up to Red Feather Lakes, Dowdy. We were on Dowdy,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a hut, we didn't have a heater. We had a hand auger, couple of rods, and a big bottle of whiskey. And we
Key
froze
component right there.
we froze our tail off, but we were too drunk to drive home, so we had to sit up there and freeze our ass off all day. So I was like, "No, this isn't for me. I'm never ice fishing again." And I didn't until like 2 years ago, and it's still not for me, man.
No, it's not. It's not. And there's a little bit of an unsettling thing when you're standing on the ice and it goes crack, pop, 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 and it goes right between your legs and it cracks. And you're like, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's a good sign. It's growing, it's expanding." You're like, "No, the ice is cracking under my feet. Just something don't seem right."
Yeah.
So you said you were a boat guy originally, and now here you are in the kayak world. How did that transition happen? What do you still boat fish?
Not really. No, I have a Nitro Z7 sitting in my garage that I use like 2 or 3 times a year when the wife and I go out and just go out fun fishing. Honestly, I got tired of the amount of people here in Colorado and trying to launch on a weekend and trying to get back out of the water on a weekend. I mean, let's put it this way. Along the Front Range here, when I say the Front Range, I'm talking about the I-25 corridor from Wyoming down to New Mexico. I don't know the number, but there's probably, 3 million people along the Front Range? 2 million people? I don't know, but it's a big number, right?
Right.
There's literally 5 decent lakes that you can get out on with a boat. So you figure on any given weekend, there's hundreds and hundreds of people on very small bodies of water. And I just got tired of that scenario and trying to fish on weekends with that chaos and craziness. I said, you know what, I'm gonna get into the kayak game. I can go back in the no wake zones. I can kind of stay to myself. It's a little more grassroots, I guess you would say.
Right.
And that's kind of how I got into it. I just started looking into it in about 2018. And I got my first kayak. Here, a funny story. I don't want to drag this out, but this is a good story. So coming from the bass boat world, I did pretty good there. My wife and I ran the ABA for team series for 3 years or 4 years. So I was familiar with the running tournaments. I did pretty good fishing with my team partner through our local clubs at Centennial Bass Club, won a couple events. I did pretty good. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go down and I'm going to stomp on these kayak guys. I see these guys out all the time. They're just sitting there on a point and they're just dragging something and sitting in one spot. They don't know nothing about covering water. They don't know their electronics. They don't know nothing. So I get my kayak and I had it for like a month and a half, and CKFC has a tournament up at Boyd Lake. And I get up there. It was like middle of April. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put a whooping on these boys. These fish are the ice just came off. These fish are going to be moving shallow, believe it or not. As soon as they see that daylight, they're moving up and they're going to start feeding. I'm like, I'm going to put a whooping on these guys. They sounded the whistle to say go. And I had my native at the time, and I started pedaling, and my legs are burning, right? I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like sucking wind. I'm at 5,000 feet, right? I'm like sucking wind, and my legs are burning. And all of a sudden I hear splash, 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 splash. And I'm like, the fish are busting. I'm on them. I don't have to go that far. I turn around, and it's a guy with a paddle kayak, and he's kicking my ass right past me, and I'm pedaling with a pedal, and I'm like, seriously. And I finally get to this spot a half hour later, and by the time I get there, I was so tired. My legs were burning. I'm like, okay, all right, just settle down. I got this. I pick up my casting rod and I fire up a crankbait, and as I cast this way, the kayak spins on me. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now what? Now I'm reeling backwards, right? And I'm like, wait a minute. I got to go this way. So the whole entire day, I didn't get one single bite. I fought boat control, and pardon my French, I got my ass handed to me by those kayakers. All right? I was never so embarrassed in my life. And I'm like, okay, there's something. Fishing is fishing, but kayak fishing is a total different world than bass boat fishing. I mean, every movement is enhanced by 1,000. Just everything, the boat control and just how you approach it and how you have to stay in and face into the wind to control. with a bass boat, I can be crosswind, sidewind, backward. It doesn't matter. The thing weighs 2,000 pounds. It doesn't float all over the place.
Mhm.
But I was never so embarrassed at the end of that day. It was hilarious. And then the rest of that year, I do believe that was 2018. All that year, I didn't join another tournament. I took my kayak out to all these little ponds, and I went out in wind, rain, sleet, hail, snow. I went out in everything. I'm like, I'm going to master this kayak deal. Following year, 2019, I went to CKFC and I won Angler of the Year.
Hey, that a boy.
So
Mhm.
that was a pretty good accomplishment for me right there. I mean, I was happy. I mean, I know I'm a decent angler and I can hang, but man, that was a gut check, that first tournament at Boyd.
Yeah.
So did you run the same boat all year then? For a
I
while.
did. Yes, I did. I ran my native 10.5 because originally I didn't want a big kayak because I was going to go pond hopping. Right, I had no
Mhm.
intentions of doing tournaments, but if you ask my wife, and if you know me at all, I live for the competition. I don't care about the money. I don't care about all the trophies behind me. I want the competition. That's what I'm there for. And there's no way I couldn't. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to fish out of my 10.5 and I'll see where it takes me. Well, Angler of the Year comes up and, I got some accolades with that. And then Hobie BOS came to Pueblo in 2019 for a satellite event. And there was 67 guys or something like that. And I actually wound up winning that event. And I got an invite to the TOC at Lake Ouachita.
Right.
And this is when they the very first one where they put it down to 50 only, the top 50 in the country or in the world. So I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of that. So I got there. I got to meet AJ and all those guys. And one thing leads to another. Here I am now, 2 years later. I'm on Hobie's pro staff, aligned with Jim at Waterline Sports with some sponsors, and very, very mild, keeping it small. I'm not trying to get too big because I just don't play that game, with the sponsorship. If the opportunity comes along and I feel like I can be of value to a company and they want to have me on board, I'm all for it. But I appreciate everything Jim from Waterline Sports and Hobie does for me. So I still have my native, but when you see me fishing tournaments, I will be fishing tournaments out of my Hobie, my PA 14 360.
By the way, you got to give a good shout out to Waterline for sure, man. I last time I was in Colorado, I stopped in and introduced myself to Sarah.
Yeah.
And, she was awesome, man. It was great. I left my wife sitting in the car. I was like, I'm gonna run in here real quick. 45 minutes later, my wife comes in, and Sarah and I are just sitting there, shooting the shit. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
Super helpful. Just good people, man. So and
For
they
sure.
are both a native and a Hobie dealer.
Yes, they are. Yes,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
native and you know what? Once again, I'm sponsored with Hobie, so I got to say all the right things. But I have no problem with my native. They're both great kayaks. I'm not telling one person that one's better than the other. Certain people have certain abilities where the pedaling motion is better than the stair step type of emotion. So just get into whatever's good for you and you're comfortable with, and that is the right kayak.
Yeah,
But
for sure. We try to make sure that even guys who are still paddling, check that paddling. Because around here we don't have a lot of big lakes.
right.
It's a lot of small water. Now we're getting on some bigger lakes just because the growth of the club kind of demands it. But you can paddle in a lot of our local events and be competitive for sure.
I think I think with our lakes, James, we have a lot of grass.
Yeah.
I have a PDL, I have an Old Town, so couple tournaments where I had to pull my prop up a few times, like more than a few times, probably like 35 times, in a matter of a few hours because of just how much grass there is. And that's where the fin drive comes into place a lot, or just paddling, you get right over the mats, you can be an advantage sometimes that way.
100%. And I've noticed that being in both models of native and Hobie. I will say this, the native for Colorado type of fishing, where we are clear, deep reservoirs that don't have a lot of vegetation, that instant reverse when you're drop shotting or try to vertically fish, which is a big part of the game out here, is a hands down advantage out here. That even with the Hobie 360, you still got to turn that knob to go in the 360 to back up and go forward. But when I go to Nebraska or I go south to Texas or I go anywhere else, like Jay had just mentioned, that Hobie drive, I can kick right through pretty much anything and not get twisted up. But so each one has their advantage.
I specifically chose the Old Town Salty, and I decided to get a ocean kayak because all the wind that we get here, it is so bad sometimes, and maneuverability and safety and being tight, like Jim was saying, smaller lakes. I want to be able to cover water quickly and still be nimble to get around people and in structure and stuff like that. So I was very mindful about picking my kayak, but there are other kayaks like Hobie that I'm kind of looking at potentially, in the future for those bigger waters.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately, we'd love to have a fleet, right? One of each brand.
Yeah,
right.
So
exactly.
I mean, there's the competitor coming out in me. I just can't help it, right?
So this is my first year in a pedal boat, and I'm in a Native Slayer Max, and
nice.
It's changed the way I fish, for sure. And I'm just, to be honest, I don't feel like I'm fishing as good as I did when I was paddling last year in my old Feel Free.
Really?
And it's just because of the grass, right? Like I don't always want to pull my drive and get deep into the slop where, when I was paddling, it was like, that was my advantage over everybody. I could get deep in there easily.
Right.
Be stealthy.
It's that like 30 seconds or 1 minute of overthinking where now you're thinking about grass rather than just thinking about fishing. And that could cost you bites, right? In between those type of things and having to mentally manage that. So
I think the other part also was the way that I would break down a lake then compared to now, right? Like now I have pedals and okay, it's nothing when I'm, on a 300-400 acre lake to go from one end to the other or whatever. Yeah. But that's, it doesn't sound that big and it's really not that big, but when you're paddling, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. So I would, I'd break the lakes down into thirds, kind of depending on the size of the lake. Yep. And I would just pick an area and fish that. But
well, that's an art that you've got. That's an art you've got there, James, because I've tried to pull my drive up with my Native and even with the Hobie when I've gotten shallower around grass, and casting and then having the paddle on your lap and being able to maneuver and then cast and pick up the rod and then pick up the paddle and pick up the rod and pick up that's an art. I cannot do it. I literally jumped right in with a pedal drive. So I have zero experience with a paddle. Like I splash more water and I get myself more wet than I do anything. So
I tell you,
kudos to you.
I've put that old paddle boat through some pretty extreme conditions. My very first tournament was Big Hill down in Kansas. It was like 22 degrees at launch. And it was miserable, man. It was absolutely miserable. So that was my very first kayak tournament. And since then I've traveled a little bit and fished all over the place. I had that thing down in the Louisiana salt marsh with Dwayne Wally paddling and catching redfish down there.
Now course, that doesn't sound too bad.
Well, I tell you what, Dwayne's a hell of a guy. He's a super nice guy, great to fish with, full of knowledge. I love the guy like a brother, but that wind out there, when you're in wide open water, and you have maybe a patch of grass to protect you, it'll blow you off. So
for me, it was like the opposite of what I wanted. I want to do, because when my first kayak was a Big Fish 105, and I dropped a Minn Kota 30-pound motor in it, and I was actually paddling first, and I realized, hey, I need to get a motor on this thing. So I put a motor on it. Then I was like, what, I'm kind of good at this fishing thing. Maybe I'll get into some tournaments, and realize all the clubs don't do motors. So I was like, well, I get like at least a fin drive, right? So I got a Pelican Catch 110, which Michael Thomas has, and that was really good luck for me. Catch some little bit of money on that one, and then now it didn't have reverse, so now I got the PDL. So I've had like 3 kayaks in the last 3 years, but I mean, it's just all the cycle and evolution of fishing for me.
For sure.
Yeah, 100%.
If I keep buying kayaks, I'm going to need a bigger garage, right?
The boat that sits in my garage, there's many a times, the amount of times I use it, there's thoughts that I am going to sell that boat, and it's coming real close, and I'm going to get a variation of some different kayaks, because for sure, like Jay just said, there is situations where I want to take a certain kayak to a certain situation. You know, when I go pond hopping, I don't want to be dragging a 14-foot PA 360, a 3/8 of a mile down.
Right.
I mean, that thing weighs 148 pounds naked, right? I put my gear in it. It's about 175. I weigh 155. So the math just doesn't work going back home, because every time you go to a pond, it's always uphill on the way home.
Oh
Yeah.
for sure.
You know what
Sure.
I mean?
So let's talk a little bit about, you know, what kind of fishing opportunities there are in Colorado. You know, we'd kind of mentioned before that, you know, you talked about Colorado and everybody has this picture of mountains and standing on a river and slinging a fly, which I love to do, by the way. I absolutely love it. But that, you know, there's not a lot of thought that goes into bass fishing. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because your series, you have 2 events in Colorado, right?
Yep.
Then you have 2 events in Western Nebraska.
3 events in Colorado and 2 in Western Nebraska.
I was going to say you come back for your championship down in Pueblo, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So, and I know the laws out there are a little bit different, and you know, you had mentioned a little bit about crowds. I had come out for a kayak tournament on Horsetooth 2 years ago, and was blown away, man. Like it was crazy. Like the boat traffic was crazy, and you know, we launched at the north end, and I was paddling, right? I was paddling Horsetooth, and you know, so you launch at that north end, and then you go down a few hundred yards, and there's that rock wall on the west, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know right where you're talking about.
So
you were hugging that thing.
So I'm fishing that. I'm throwing a drop shot. I'm throwing a Ned rig, and like here comes some girl on her paddleboard. Don't get me wrong, she was really pretty, so I didn't mind. But she paddled right in between me and the rock wall, and I was like, "What the heck?" Meanwhile,
you are in Colorado, my friend.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Welcome.
there's a wake boat going full tilt 40 yards behind me, and I'm just like, it was crazy, man. It was absolutely crazy.
You can't explain it to people, and when you do, people are like, I feel like you're giving off that negative Nelly vibe, but you're really just trying to warn people that you could die out there on any given weekend. I mean, it's no joke. I mean, it's like serious. You got to have like dispatch on call at all times. I mean, there's only a certain direction. I mean, it's the point where you got to go clockwise around that lake, so there's no free for all. And they literally it creates a washing machine. If you're going to cross that lake on a Saturday afternoon in August, July, or you better know what you're doing.
Yeah. For sure. I was lucky enough that I had a pretty good game plan going in, and I'd been out in Colorado the week before, and I have a buddy out there. He fishes boat club, Brett Vogel. I don't know if you know Brett or not.
Yeah, I know the name. I know the name. Yeah.
So him and I are
Centennial Bass Club. I think he fishes, right?
Yeah, for sure. Him and I have been buddies for a long time. But he used to be a boater. Now he's a non-boater, but he hooked me up with the boater guy and was able to go out and pre-fish the week before. But so I had a pretty good idea of like, okay, I really don't have to go too far, and kind of knew what to expect. But it was crazy, man. It was absolutely crazy. So anyway, so bass fishing opportunities in Colorado, what do you have?
Really, you've got, if you're looking throughout the whole entire state, you've got Navajo down south in the Durango area, southwest corner, and you got McPhee in that area. Then you start getting towards Grand Junction centrally. There's really not much up there. And you start getting north towards Steamboat in that northwest area. You're really climbing in elevation, and you start losing that warm water effect. And you start getting into cold water species, your kokanee, your salmons, the pikes. They're very limited smallmouth. Now, Elkhead Reservoir up there is something that I think in the future, and I'm going to put this out there right now, CKB, potentially Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, might wind up going to Elkhead maybe sometime in the near future. Great smallmouth fishery. They're considered a nuisance up there, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife wants them out of there. But there's good ones in there. And when I say good ones for Colorado, I'm talking 17 to 19-inch fish. That's good for Colorado.
Are these all highland reservoirs, or are they not like natural? Some are natural, or just all reservoir?
They are. I'm just going to say 80% of our lakes along the Front Range that, if not 95, that hold bass under the warm water species. Those are all reservoir systems. And when you start getting into natural lakes, you're getting up in the mountains where the snow runoffs, and it was just naturally made, hundreds of thousands of years ago. So, but along the Front Range where most tournaments go, I mean, really from Wyoming all the way down to New Mexico, you really only have 5 lakes. And starting up north, you've got Horsetooth, then you've got Boyd, and then you've got Chatfield, Pueblo, and then Trinidad. Those are basically the 5 lakes that are worthy of holding kayak tournaments of 20 to 50 kayakers.
That's
and
crazy,
those are
man.
all, and it is. And like I said before, there's 3 million people along the Front Range. So you add all those people, recreation boaters, party boaters, pontoon boaters, fishermen. I mean, it just.
So are you guys very cognizant of when you host these tournaments and when, like maybe during a middle of a week when it's not so busy, just for safety of your guys? And how do you plan that?
Yes, 100%, Jay. And that is the reason why 2 of our events go to Western Nebraska. And if you look at the dates on those are in July and in August, really when the chaos really starts to kick in. So basically from April, first week of April till about Memorial Weekend is about the only time where you can really hold tournaments in Colorado that time of year. And then you've got to get off the water in June, July, and August. And then you can go back in September and October and go back to these lakes, because like James was saying, it gets dangerous. And like you said, Jay, it's the safety of our anglers. We want everybody to be safe and to really get where the fish are in the summertime on these reservoirs. They move out to main lake and secondary points. So you've got to be out where the chaos is. And like James said, where the 4-foot rollers from the wake boats are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put our schedule together on purpose to visit other states in those prime times of the year. I do have a couple members or a couple guys that get on my case about it. Hey, it's called Colorado Kayak Bassmasters. You really need to stay in Colorado. Well, I get that. But the whole premise of this club, one thing is to give us the opportunity that bass is provided for that platform and for other anglers, but also to give us the diversity of fishing to round you as an angler. Because here in Colorado, if you're fishing Colorado, you might as well not even own an extra heavy or a heavy flipping stick with braid and 1 ounce jig. It's just Jiggy J would not exist in Colorado. He'd be called Finesse Frankie or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, for real. I mean, you're talking get rid of the meat sticks and get your sissy and fairy wands, because I'll tell you, my arsenal. If you go down in my garage or you look in my shop where I keep my stuff, I have 4-pound, 6-pound, 8-pound, 10, and 12-pound line. That's what I have here. Now, I do have 17, 20, and other stuff, but I have the smaller spools. But fishing out here in Colorado is a total different animal than fishing anywhere in the country. Everybody says, oh, it's West Coast, you can fish like that in California. Not true. You can go to California, you can hit the Delta, you can get into tules, you can get into grasses, weeds, covers, hyacinths. We don't have any of that stuff out here. You got to remember, like you said, Jay, these are highland reservoirs. These reservoirs are designed to hold water for irrigation purposes, to be sold off to farmers, and it's there for drinking water for a lot of these cities. So when you start the season starting in January of a brand new year and the ice comes off, our reservoirs will be 25, 30 feet low. And then all of a sudden they'll pour this water in from the mountain runoff from the spring thaw, and they'll fill the reservoir up from April, May, and June. And then they'll shut that down because the snow melts. No more stuff comes in. They shut that off. They send that water now down the irrigation pipes or to the city for drinking water, and the reservoir goes back down again. So by the time you hit October, it looks like it did again in April, and it's fluctuating 20 to 25 feet sometimes. So the style of fishing and how you adapt and trying to find something to flip and pitch and trees It doesn't happen out here. They will literally clear a reservoir of the trees because it puts contaminants in the water because it's drinking water, right? So they don't want nothing in the water out here.
So Marty Hughes, I had to throw this up there. He says Nico country.
Nice. 100%.
Marty can be fishing 60-foot clear water thrown in Nico, or he could be fishing a 2-foot deep mud hole in Iowa, and he's still throwing a Nico. And he still kicks our ass, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's his
I will call that like live scope country because the water is clear, probably for the most part, and you can just fish bottom, and you just have to watch those fish move around the reservoir when the water's moving up and down.
Yeah, no, 100%, Jay. You are completely right. Live scope has changed the game because before that, even with the bass boats, like you said, with it being highland reservoirs, let's start off up at Horsetooth, for instance. Horsetooth is 97% smallmouth and 3% largemouth. Matter of fact, when you catch a largemouth in Horsetooth, we call it the unicorn fish. Yeah. You caught a unicorn, you caught a largemouth. So Horsetooth is all smallmouth fishery. You get to Boyd. Boyd is more of a largemouth fishery. Boyd does have some grasses, but the grass is there only when water is full and certain times of the year. And then that dissipates and then they move back down. I call Boyd Lake a cereal bowl filled with spring water. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, there's no contours, there's no nothing. It just literally just goes whoop to a depth, and you got to find something, throw a couple toothpicks out there and those fish will suspend on that piece of wood, right? I mean, that's all you get. But then you get down to Pueblo. Now, Pueblo is probably one of the most diverse fisheries we have. The fact that there's also 3 species of black bass in there. You've got your smallmouth, your largemouth, and your spots. And if you were to take all the water out of Pueblo, the Arkansas River runs through there. So they built the Pueblo Dam and they flooded that impoundment. And the Arkansas River with channel swings and everything else makes up that impoundment. So when the snow melts in the spring, the west end of that lake, water running in, dirties that water up and becomes chocolate milk. So the first thing you think is, aha, we've got dirty water. That water's going to warm up first. That spawn's going to happen first. It doesn't. And you know why? Because the water running into there from the Arkansas River is snow melt and it's 38 degrees. Right. So now you've got cold, dark water. And if you know anything about fishing, cold, dark water is not your friend. Mm-hmm. So everybody that comes from the South or a different part of the country or the state goes, man, cold water or dark water, I'm going there. They don't realize they get there, it's 10 degrees colder than it would be at the other end of the lake. So the west end gets muddy from the Arkansas River coming in. You get about mid-lake and it's semi-stained. And then you go to the east end over there by the dam where the North Shore Marina and the South Shore Marina is, and you can see down 15, 20 feet, super clear water. And the fish will align with that. So if you're looking for spots and smallmouth, go to the east end where it's clear. They're pelagic. They'll fish. They'll roam. They'll chase that bait. The water's clear. You want the largemouth or something that's going to relate to the trees, you can get mid-lake, and in the summertime, you can get down to that stained water because, you can use different types of baits. Excuse me. But I think Pueblo is probably the most diverse fishery we've got because you've got almost 3 lakes in one. You've got stained, mid, and clear all in one. And not to mention, you've got trout and catfish and wiper and smallmouth and largemouth and perch and sunfish and crappie. I mean, you could catch 8 species in one day. Walleye, very easily.
So I've never been to Pueblo. I've heard lots of good things about it, but I never went just because it's Pueblo.
I kind of want to go now. It just sounds. Is it Pueblo, the one are you talking about? The one by Colorado Springs?
South of Colorado Springs.
Yep, south of Colorado Springs. Now it's not too late. I know you guys. We got 2 events coming, and they're coming to your neck of the woods, right? We're going to Swanson, in 2 weeks, and then we're going to Red Willow, and then we're coming to Pueblo. So if you guys want to hop in at any of this, in order to fish Pueblo, our championship, you got to fish at least one Trail Series event, regular season event. So, don't give up Horsetooth like James said. I think Rick Valdez came out with you, didn't he? And a couple other guys from Nebraska. He won it.
No, he didn't win it. But the great thing about Rick in that tournament, he had never caught a smallmouth going into that tournament. So we're talking, you know how guys talk night before a tournament. Hey, Rick, what's your plan, man? I'm going to find this bluff wall, dude. I'm throwing a buzz bait all day. I'm like, nobody throws a buzz bait for smallmouth. You're crazy. And here he comes, dude. He smashes them. He was like a quarter inch from taking big bass, and he ended up taking third in the tournament. I was like, oh, dude.
Wow.
I made him take me out for some good Mexican food after we were done. I
was like, nice. That's awesome.
No, I was gonna say I have some family in Colorado Springs, and maybe I've had to go to Pueblo a couple times, so I didn't know there's a big lake over there.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good one, and it's like I said, all three species are in there, and it's a numbers game. Once again, in Colorado, it's pure 100% numbers. You go to Horsetooth, you'll catch 30 to 90 fish. I'm not kidding, a day, and they'll range anywhere from 10 inches up to 13 inches consistently. And into those 60 fish you catch, you'll get a couple 16s or a 17. There are 19s in there. I've caught them in our bass tournaments. I've caught them out of the kayak. They're far and few between.
So are the fish all grouped up a lot on most of these lakes? They're kind of tight together. They're not kind of spread out because having so many structure like we have here.
No, actually, no, Jay. Believe it or not, they don't. They do group up, but they roam so much. Like we could go to, I don't know, any southern lake, and we go, oh, I found a school. Let's say you go to Truman for the All-American. You find a school of fish, and they're hanging out there. They're there for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
You can go to Colorado and any one of our lakes, pull up on a point, fire a buzzbait or whatever you're firing out there, and all of a sudden you get on fire for about 3 minutes, and then it shuts down and it's gone. You're like, what happened? The school moves. My buddy of mine that I used to fish the team tournaments with out of our bass boat, we had a joke. We'd pull up to a point, we'd catch one fish. As long as we caught that fish and it went in the live well for weigh-in out of the bass boat and we didn't drop it back in the water, we'd continue fishing. But I swear, those fish, when you drop them back in the water, they tell their buddies, hey, Pete, hey, Frank, don't catch. And then you get one fish out of the whole school and then they're gone and it never happened. You just might as well pull off of that point and just go someplace else, throw something else, get another fish. Junk fishing at its finest.
That's
but
awesome.
it's pure numbers. And that's what makes it's very exciting for a kayak series, because between first and fifth can be an inch. I mean, Trinidad, for example, if you guys tuned in live when I went live, first and second were tied, third and fourth were tied, and we had a tie for big bass.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Well, I mean, it gives opportunity for people who aren't looking for, top tier. They can go out and still have a good time and still catch fish. And sometimes that's what brings people back is just the, not how well they did competitively, but just how much they had fun and catching fish gets people to
100%. And it's our job as directors to put the schedule together based on when a fishery excels and is at its finest, so all anglers can have fun and feel like they've caught fish. Because there's nothing worse than having 20 guys show up at a tournament or 30 guys, half the field blanks and only a third of the field catches 5. I mean, it's just those tournaments happen, and it's just the way it is. But it's our job as directors to know a fishery and base it on a time of year that best suits that fishery.
Yeah. But by the way, Rick corrected me. He said he got third and big bass at Horsetooth.
Yeah, let's get it. Big bass. What was his big bass? What was his length on it? Does he know?
Probably like a 17.5 or something.
Okay. So big bass in your guys' world is like 20 and a half, 20, right? 21. Yeah, no, not out here, but for sheer numbers and to fine tune your game, I'll tell you what. Who was it? I can't remember his name. He fishes the Hobie series. He won last year, and he doesn't even use electronics. I can't remember not Jordan Marshall. I don't know. He doesn't use electronics at all. And Ryan Lambert and I always go back and forth with each other. He's like, I don't use electronics other than depth and water temperature. I'll tell you what, if you come to Colorado, you better learn how to use and read your electronics, and you better have it all from forward facing, side imaging, down imaging, because those fish, they're grouped, but they're constantly moving and they're constantly changing. I mean, the sun goes away, it does one thing. The clouds come out, it does another thing. The wind changes direction and spirals on a dime here in Colorado. It'll come out of a bay one way, and it'll catch the open air and be blown out of a different way. So you're in one bay, it's coming out of the west. You pull on the main lake, it's coming out of the north. So you're setting up on a point one way, but and understanding what you're seeing on the graph, how fish are located on the graph is huge. If you have an area that's got a drop off like this right here, and the fish are dropped off, and this is the flat, if those fish are up on this flat, they're up there for one reason here in Colorado. They're up there to feed, and they're going to be there for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then they're going to pull off, and they're going to start to suspend over in here. The worst fish you can try to catch in our world out here in Colorado is that fish that's suspending on that bluff or that drop off that's just suspending there. He's inactive. You're going to have to try to drop shot to him. You're going to have to put 4-pound line with some sort of micro.
Yeah. Or it could be a wiper.
It's very possible. It's very possible. So, but understanding your electronics and understanding that fish in one position, another, or up on the flat, and understanding what they're doing there is giving you success to be a better angler in this area or part of the country. Yeah. So,
sorry to interrupt you. Marty said Drew Gregory, and he paddles. Is that who he is?
Drew Gregory is the guy who fishes the Hobie series.
But he won Angler of the Year. He won Angler of the Year last year for Hobie, and he didn't even use electronics. And it just goes to show that parts of the country on where you're at and where you're holding tournaments, it really doesn't play much of a part for some people. But for me, I'm an electronics geek, and that hurts me when I wind up going down to Table Rock, because I'm like, oh yeah, I can go to Table Rock, or not Table Rock, down to Lake Fork. I'm like, I'm going to go find a deep bite, and in my world, deep down there, 12 feet, right? I'm going to go drop shot on bridge pilings at 12 feet. Who the hell is doing that at Lake Fork? That's not even the pattern. You don't do that except for like a week out of the whole entire year. But I've been so conditioned to this Colorado style of fishing that when I go someplace else, I got to remember fish shallow, because fish are not shallow in Colorado. There's 4-foot rollers, the mud line. It's not conducive. Our clear water, like you were saying, Jay, our clear water scares the hell out of those fish, because if it's calm and it's clear, now you're looking at bald eagles and osprey. Those fish become prey. They will not go shallow. They just won't.
So now you're heading into the second half of your season. Now you got a couple Nebraska lakes on your schedule, and that's a whole different game, right? I mean, you're respooling reels, you're doing all kinds of stuff to get ready for that.
100%. And I actually, for a while, I've got Galaxy custom rods. I build custom rods. So I literally had built 2 flipping sticks pretty much just for Nebraska.
Really?
So, I mean, it's something you don't do out here. You just don't have the opportunity. It's just not the style out here. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just, that's not what we have. But when we go to other places, you better be a well-rounded angler. And I grew up in upstate New York, upstate in Albany area. I fished on Lake George, the Mohawk River, the Hudson River, the Finger Lake, Champlain. So I was diversified a little bit. But when I came out here, I was completely clueless for like 2.5 years. I couldn't catch anything, and it changes your style. So I'm comfortable in a foot of water on lily pads, pitching something in something the size of a coffee cup, or I'm out 65 feet drop shotting on the side of a hump or a bluff wall, reading my electronics. So I'm good either way.
Nice.
Right.
I feel comfortable either way. I'm not saying I'm good either way. I feel comfortable either way.
So I'm gonna follow you around at Wilson, dude. Like that's it. Like,
well, I've never been to Wilson. It's on my radar. I got to see where I am with work, and I'd like to do it, but I have a feeling that could fish a lot like Colorado.
Yeah, for sure, man. I hope you can make it out there, and we're actually co-hosting with All American on that. So,
so we could double dip.
Yeah, so you guys that are coming out from Colorado to fish Wilson, the All American on July 30th, 29th, 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Come on out, double dip, man. We'd love to have you guys. Ours is only a 1 day, so we'll only be doing Saturday, and then I don't know. Should be interesting. I've never fished out there. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about the fishery. I've looked at it on Google Earth and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, I'm praying one day that the All-American or Hobie comes to comes to Table Rock, or they come to some reservoir where these fish are out in 55, 60 feet, and you just eliminated 85% of the field, and I can get out there with some sort of flat-nosed minnow at 65 feet on 4-pound line using my electronics and video game those fish all day long.
So I got to tell you, James, fishing 4-pound line in Nebraska, we'd break that off on grass, dude.
Oh, I'm sure. No, I know. I mean, okay, if you look behind me, right.
Yep. I see it right here.
Those circle trophies right there, that one right there.
Yeah, those are cool.
Those are the ones that we present for our guys at Colorado Kayak Bassmasters. That's the shield that we always talk about. That's the coveted shield. I promote that like it's some gracious trophy, right? But it's all about promotion, right? Those 2 trophies behind me came from Nebraska. I have not won a single one from Colorado. I got one of those is from Red Willow, and the other one is from Swanson. And one was a buzzbait in 1.5 feet of water.
Yeah. And
they were busting on shad. That was at Red Willow. And at Swanson, I had a Berkeley Pit Boss in Bama Craw with a 3/8 or a 3/4 ounce tungsten, and I just flipped my way all around that west end on Swanson.
Really? Wow.
So I'm looking forward to it. If I had my choice, I would be a power fisherman. It's what I like to do.
I'm trying to be a power finesse fisherman, like power finesse.
There's something to that,
Yeah.
I mean, the greatest person to ever talk to about this, frog fishing, James Francis, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, the way I work a frog, it's almost a power finesse type of a technique. You can burn a frog through something and go fast, but out here in Colorado, believe it or not, you want them to actually get a good look at it. You don't want them to you can walk it and then stop it and then give it one twitch and one more and stop and let it sit there. And then wham, that's when they'll hit it. Versus other places, you get that thing going and you can just skitter it across the pads and they'll come out of it and they'll just destroy it. It's that finesse power fishing technique, right?
I was we were at one of our league nights here a few weeks ago on Flanagan, and one of our guys was he was throwing a teckle frog, and he was burning that thing, and he was just crushing them. I'm like, dude, I would never run that thing that fast, but it was crazy. It was crazy to watch. But James, I don't know if you saw the episode that we did, our interview with James Francis, but
yeah.
That guy's a genius, man.
Yeah, he is. He is.
He's so much to learn from him. And you. I mean, there's so many good anglers in the area, and I guess we hope, with this podcast that we do, we kind of started this just to really just give a little love to our sponsors, right? Shield's up there on the screen being our title sponsor. Those guys have been great partners, but
great company.
It's been an experience where we've got to visit with anglers pretty much all over this side of the country, and we learn a lot.
It creates a community.
So
great community.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to ask you about going forward, Colorado Kayak Bassmasters next year. What are you thinking for schedule? What kind of lakes are you considering? Have you thought about Wyoming at all?
I have thought about Wyoming, and I've got some ideas coming up for 2023. You and I talked about something, and I don't want to say anything about that, but we talked about something. I don't want to spill any beans, but the number one thing I want to do for our series is I want to keep it diverse. I want to round those anglers out of Colorado and give them the opportunity to get to the Nebraska and do the flipping and the pitching. Right. And then I also want to be able to come here and stay on the smallmouth game and chase those spots, and then still be able to go down to Pueblo and have your 3 different bodies of water within one and be a well-rounded angler. But I also want their input, and I really lean on our members to give me guidance as to what they really want. So I would love to see Colorado Kayak Bassmasters fish one in Wyoming, fish something in Kansas, possibly, maybe Cedar Bluffs. Stay in Colorado, obviously, when the time of year permits and safety is there and we're not getting hammered by wake boats. But McConaughey has been a big one. I know they're in there, but man, McConaughey can creep up on you in a kayak really, really bad. And when you put a schedule together, you don't know what the weather's going to be like. And it can go south real bad, but McConaughey's got them. I mean, that's going to be another great fishery. Elwood, I'm going to pull it out there now. Elwood is on my radar for 2023. We did Red Willow and Swanson 2 years in a row. I might lean off of one or two of those next year. I'm looking around and I'm open for suggestions as well. But once again, I want my club members' input. So at a lot of our weigh-ins or our meetings that we have, I kind of pick the brains of the guys who show up consistently and say, hey, what would you like this series to do? Where do you want to go with this series? What do you want it to be? Because I have a vision of what I want it to be. And I want the opportunity for Colorado, and I want to diversify and give great fisheries based on the time of year. That's what I'm focused on, and make it an angler experience and feel like the club members have say as to how this club is being created.
Yeah, man, I think that's something you really touched on, something important there. As directors of these events, man, every club's going to have 4 or 5 good anglers, right? I mean, it's just inevitable. You're going to have those guys, those Marty Hugheses, those Nate Glorias, who are always going to sit up at the top, and that's cool. But I think if we don't provide a good experience for everybody in our club, we're really doing everybody a disservice.
Agree.
And there's a lot that goes into that, from picking the lakes, challenging the anglers to try something different. I think that's just an important part of this, especially, there's so many opportunities to fish now, right? Between
there
clubs
is.
out here, clubs out there. Kansas has got a whole bunch, of course, All-Americans all over the place. You got Moyak, and you have a couple clubs in Missouri. I mean, there's so many opportunities to fish, and if we want to keep growing the sport, it's
for sure. And even
pay attention to what you guys want.
Yeah, I mean, the guys in New Mexico, there's some guys out there. I know Jeff Sherwood, Matt Ramey. If something came their way or in that neck of the woods, those guys, they got a pretty good following. I think Shane Meehouse is out of there too. He's a really good angler out of New Mexico. So, it's good to see what you guys are doing with this podcast and exposing this part of the country, because let's face it, bass fishing comes from the South. Bass fishing comes from Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, and kind of along the East Coast and up that area and central part of the country. But, where we are, that Nebraska, Kansas, I mean, look where James Francis is in North Dakota, South Dakota, Lake Wahi. Oh my goodness. I would love to have something on Lake Wahi. I mean, those fish are giants in there. Wait till the BASS elites go there, and you'll see what's going to get pulled out of there. Yeah. But I think it's great what you guys are doing with this podcast. I'm glad to be on, and I'm glad you guys have started up, Central States along with everything else, because the more opportunities we have, the better we all can become.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think it's necessarily one club works for everybody, right? Like, you're going to find your place where you fit in, and what works for you, whether it be travel, schedule, all that kind of stuff. And that's okay, man. I mean, it's great to have lots of opportunities. So important stuff. So before we let you go, if I got guys that want to come out and fish Red Willow or Swanson and get down to Pueblo, what do we need to do to get involved?
What you're going to need, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go get a membership through BASS, Bass Angler Sportsman Society. That's something you don't do through me. You contact them on your own, and you sign up for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, whatever you want. I think it's $15 a year. Excuse me. To do that. Once you have your membership number, you can contact me via Facebook on Colorado Kayak Bassmasters, or you can send me a private message, a direct message in Messenger, or text me if you've got my phone number. Find me somehow and get me your BASS number. Once you have that, there's another fee that BASS requires. Is all members that are going to join the kayak club have to be a member of the nation, which is a $30 yearly due. Basically what the nation is, it's a voice. It's members made up of all people within each state under a group heading. So when legislation tries to take some of our rights away, the nation, BASS, fights together as a whole. So the $30 you pay for your nation dues goes to a good cause to keep our rights and our freedoms for fishing. And not only that is you do get once a month subscription to Bass Times. Along with your BASS membership, you'll get Bassmaster magazine. So you're getting a plethora of knowledge for those fees. So, and then we have a $20 a year club dues. So total all expense before you would fish any of our events is going to be $65.
Gotcha.
And like I said, 15 for BASS, 30 to join the nation, and 20 for our club dues.
How much are your event cost generally? About $50, $60?
Yep, $50. There's talk of us possibly raising it next year. We've got some anglers saying, hey, you guys are drawing some pretty good names out of Colorado, and we're looking for a little bit more money stakes. So there's talk about that. I'm a little reluctant about that because I'm trying to grow the club, not make it an entry fee where I'm scaring the hell out of people where they don't want to go, they don't want to fish with us. But so basically your Bass membership, your contact me and I'll get you the information. You can send me through PayPal, the $50 for your club dues and your nation dues, and then go up on Tourney X and sign up for whatever event you would like. Like I said, if you want Angler of the Year points and you're trying for that for us, it's the best of 3. And we literally have 3 events left over: Swanson, Red Willow, and Pueblo, the championship. The championship does have AOY points associated with it. But in order to fish the championship, you got to at least fish Red Willow or Swanson to then make it down. And the championship is open for anybody. Just because you're a Nebraska guy doesn't mean like, oh, we're not going to let you fish because you're from Nebraska or Kansas.
Right.
If you qualify through Colorado and you're a Nebraska guy, you're going to be representing Colorado when you go to the Bassmaster Kayak Classic, because that's the area you qualified from if you didn't double qualify.
So how does that break down? So you go have your state championship on Pueblo, and then what? Who from that goes to the big show?
It's 10% of the field is what BASS did. A year ago, last year, it was the top 5 or 10% of the field. Now it's just 10% of the field. So, right now, us being a small club, we have 30 members. We're a very small club. We get 14 to 20 guys that show up, and I'm trying to grow the club. You can't do it overnight. And I realize that it'll come with time. But I would really love to see 30 of us on Pueblo for the championship. That way we're sending 3 guys from the state of Colorado. Last year, we only had 13 people sign up for the championship, and 1 guy qualified, and then he couldn't make it. So we went through all that, and then the guy couldn't make it, and he never went and represented Colorado at the Classic. So
that's a bummer.
That's my job to promote it, but I can't make people fish if they don't want to, right? I mean, and I realize that it's an expensive endeavor, $65 to join basically out of your pocket to become a member of our club. But really only 20 of that is what helps this club function, because the rest is required dues through BASS that nobody can get away from. I mean, we just can't.
Are those dues, the $30 in the BASS, does that transfer to other states if I were to, like, say, move down middle of the year to a different state and I join another BASS club?
Your Bass membership will be transferable. And yes, your nation dues are. Yes, the nation dues are. That is correct. You might have to pay their club dues at that point is probably all you would have to do. But yes, you are correct. Nation dues and your membership is transferable along the way.
Are you moving, Jiggy J? You
going? Who knows? Who knows, man?
You're gonna move out to Colorado, right?
No, just because my dad lives in Texas, and things going on. Who knows? I might just maybe live down there for like 6-12 months and maybe do some competition. And I have some, a family in Colorado. Maybe go over there, hang out, fish the tournament. We'll see what next year brings.
All right, Mr. Moneybags.
Yeah, do it.
So, all right, real quick, give us the dates on your last 3 events here. James?
July 16th, coming up here, we are going to be at Swanson. On August 6th, we are going to be at Red Willow. And I'm going to look at the date here because they moved around on me. September 24th is our championship at Pueblo.
Awesome.
And that will be the qualifier to see who goes to the Bassmaster Classic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we wish you and your club a ton of growth, man. You guys are doing great things out there. I think
You got me fired up, man.
Yeah, great great show, by the way, James. You give a pretty good interview, dude. You can tell you're a little passionate about this stuff.
Yeah,
man, awesome. I love this. Like, if I could figure out a way to make a living fishing, I would quit my construction job in a heartbeat. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But once again, thanks to you guys for giving me the time and the exposure to tell the viewers about our series, because like I said, I just want to run the best series I can and make it fun for the anglers. The sponsorship, the money that comes with it. You know, I don't make anything. Everything's 100% payback. At the end of the year, the club carries a zero balance because we are so new. We need to start getting a website. We need to start getting things organized and get a bank account with some legit stuff going, but that all takes money and that takes time, and we got to grow. But thank you for the opportunity to be on the show.
You bet. It's our pleasure, for sure. And we will definitely have you back next year. I don't know that I'll be able to make any of your events this year, but I definitely want to come out and fish with you. If you can't make it to Wilson, man, we need to talk and see how we can get together and fish.
And if we don't see you, we'll be watching you. Make sure you live stream.
No, right on. Thank you for your support. I love it. I love this sport. I can't wait, and I'm really looking forward to Nebraska. So I'm hoping. I mean, last year we had Chris Longshore, Marty Hughes, Bobby Rubeck, Colt Volker. I mean, there's some sticks showing up. I mean, even in Colorado, the other club, Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, their tournament director called me and he's like, you know what? We got a lot of guys making comments that you guys got some pretty big names in the state that are fishing CKB. And I think we're getting a little bit of intimidation factor for some of the guys showing up. I mean, when you got the Marty Hugheses and Colt Volker and James Francis and Longshore and me, and you've got, the Trev Stuckey, Jason Duong. I mean, there's a lot of good guys that fish our series, and that's what I love. That's what I love.
For sure. We we're all blessed to have those guys around us to teach us, to learn a lot from them. But I tell you what, man, I tell you what gets me going. It's that guy when he cashes his first check. Like, to me, there's nothing better than that.
The smile. The smile. You can't get rid of it.
It's freaking awesome, man. It's awesome. I love it, man.
For sure.
That's just me. But James, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you hanging out for us here for an hour or so.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, James.
Yeah. Thanks,
feel free to ever, if you ever want to share any of your information on our Facebook page, Central States Kayak Series, please feel free to do so. You don't need to ask or anything like that. Just post away, man.
Yeah, no, same with you guys. If there's anything we can do, CKB, to help promote anything, I know you're doing something for the family and friends for the Ronald McDonald House, right? That's something going on with that.
Yeah. So, and I'll just
post something up on our page, and we can get some people to send some money your way if we can.
Oh, that's awesome, man. We certainly appreciate that. We really wanted to do something with the platform that we have, right?
Yep.
We all love fishing, and we saw an opportunity to help some other people with that. So it's a big deal. We'll share some information on your page as well. And right here at the end, look who's joining us late.
I can't see what I got. I don't want to click on nothing. I'll screw it up.
Dwayne Wally. Dwayne Wally. Dwayne, you missed the best part of the show, buddy.
No, I'm leaving. That's the best part of the show. Dwayne doesn't want to hear from me no more. I bugged that guy so much with the dumbest question on, what does this tab do on Tourney X? Me with computers, right? He's like, it says edit tournament. You click on that to edit the tournament. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks.
I tell you what, man. If you ever get an opportunity, go down and fish with Mr. Wally. It's a good time down there.
He's in Mississippi, right, Dwayne? He's out of Mississippi.
He's in Mississippi. We met down in Grand Isle, Louisiana, and we've done it 2 years. And Rick and I went both years, and then another guy, Prescott, went with us 1 year. And we made a heck of a trip out of it. We drove from Omaha to Conway, Arkansas, hooked up with some of the NSKA guys out there, right? Natural
Yeah.
State.
Yep.
Fished that night with them, got on the road the next morning, went into Louisiana, fished 3 days with Dwayne, and then did the same thing going back, fished in Arkansas again, and then came back home.
That's Roy Grubb and Garrett Morgan and Jeff Malott and all those guys are at it.
Yeah,
NSKA, right?
we were with oh my gosh, the name escapes me right now. He owns H24 Outdoors out there in Conway.
Oh yeah. He's with he does stuff with Garrett. The guy with the beard and the hair. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
So
I can't remember his name either.
I would say his name's James also, but I don't know. I'm
Great
terrible with names. This is what happens when you're 54, man. You forget. I don't know. I'll forget your name one of these days. So, anyway, brother, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Jiggy J, appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
Jay. Thank you, James. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Thank